Welcome to the T-Love Show, a conspiracy-based podcast that takes an in-depth look at the controversial sides of events throughout our time. And I'm your host, T-Love. Welcome back to the T-Love Show, episode 7, UFOs, part 1. Hey, what's up, everybody? Back on this T-Love Show, got my man Kevin. What's up, Kevin?
How you doing? How's everybody doing today?
Yeah, we're going to get on this UFO topic. It's real hot lately. And before we get into some of these details about this UFO stuff, do you think it's a distraction? The fact that they're coming forth with all this information to, I don't know, keep us blind about bills they're trying to pass underneath us, or, just distract us from the war in Ukraine or the Russia thing? Do you think that's, hey, man, let's just drop this UFO stuff on them and it'll distract them from, what's going on over here?
That's definitely a possibility. You can never be too sure with our government. They always have ulterior motives, but I honestly think that it's just getting to a point where they just can't deny it anymore. There's so many cameras, so much technology around that the average person is able to record anything at any time. And it's just so hard for them to continuously try to cover it up or silence it. It's just getting to a point where they have to put it out there.
Right. And then that also, I guess, brings you to the next point. Are they actually from outer space, other worlds? Because of how long we've had technology. Roswell was in 1959, 1960s. And we've reverse engineered that. Could they just be our own UFOs psyching out the people so that they can, again, distract you from something else? Now they talk about that mothership that's supposed to be in the atmosphere that could be an asteroid. They don't have a clue. You're talking about Independence Day style invasion, maybe, and then it could be by our own damn government.
That's definitely another great point. I think there's, layers to it. There's definitely, a part where the governments of all around the world are trying to beat each other with advancing their propulsion technologies and their aircraft technologies. But then again, there's also that part that the space is vast. The universe is large. For us to be the only living creatures, right, in the existence, it's kind of hard to fathom, So I think there's definitely layers to that.
Right. And then you talk about, like you just said, the technology. We went down that combustion engine technology path. Who's to say that our ancient ancestors or, Egyptians, when they talk about building the period, they went down a different path of some type of, accelerant, just the technology in general. And our generation civilization goes down the combustion engine. It's like if we would have spent that time earlier on going down a different route of technology, when we talk about the Bob Lazar story and the propulsion, these alien crafts that he says he's worked on are talking about, distorting gravity. So if we would have went down those paths, who's to say we wouldn't be in a different situation economically and society as a whole? But we learned the combustion engine route and was like, hey, we're going to run with this.
I think that has a part with our the way we do business in this country. I think the economics of capitalism has stifled innovation, and it's hard to break through. There's a reason why there's 3 major car companies and not very many new car companies, because it's so capital intensive to be able to create a new product and bring it to mainstream production. I think that's why a lot of things just don't ever get made, Yeah,
you talk about, car companies, only, 3, 4 major ones. It gives you the illusion of choice. It's the same thing in the service industry. If you think about it, fast food restaurants or insurance, how many insurance companies do you know? I can only think of 3 or 4 off the top of my head.
Exactly.
All right. So we're going to touch on this Anunnaki stuff, because that's kind of, I think, where it all originated from. You could think they were the bringers of life, the cradle of civilization, which was out there in the Middle East, Iraq, Egyptian, even the Mayans all speak of the bringers of life, talking about these Anunnaki characters that came down and brought them, knowledge about what was on the earth and technology and how to use it. So what do you think about all the Anunnaki stuff?
The Anunnaki, I mean, that story is crazy just because, it's the oldest stories of extraterrestrials or otherworldly beings to interact with humans. They found these Sumerian tablets in Iraq in an archaeological dig. They discovered 14 tablets in Samaria. It's the oldest known writings dated back to 2400 BC.
How do you judge that? Like on the rocks around them? Because like there's temples that they go into and they can't actually age the temple, so they age the artifacts that they find. So maybe them tablets they were able to carbon date, but then like we created that carbon dating system. Because you talk about like the Sphinx, for example, and there's a guy that talks about water erosion. I forget his name. I think it's Hancock.
Graham Hancock.
I think it's him. And they talk about water erosion, but there hadn't been water in the Egyptians even way before they thought it was built. And now he's ostracized because he's got a different theory than everybody else. And it's like, why do you do that?
Well, as far as the Sphinx, there's a lot of different conspiracies or stories as to what happened there. There's definitely, if you look at the head of the Sphinx, the face has been altered.
Right.
Yeah, that clearly. Nose is not, right. It just doesn't fit right with that structure. So whether it was, weather erosion or somebody maliciously went in there to try to change the features, I don't know. But the carbon dating, and I'm not a scientist, so I don't even want to pretend like that get deposited on, rock and sediment, that they're able to tell when, the date is because of other events as far as, CO2 levels. And I don't know the exact science again behind it, but I believe in that carbon dating. I don't think it's exact. They're not going to be able to tell you within, 100 years or so. But I think that, there's been life on this planet longer than we realize.
Right,
if we're in
for sure
2023 right now, AD. So that's only 2,000 years after Jesus died. So there's a lot of science behind it, that the experts are able to explain it a lot better. But I'm definitely a believer of carbon dating.
Yeah, I'm not so much. Like I think we just we created a system, like you said, it's our best educated guess, based on the information we have. And you're right, it's not exact. So I don't necessarily believe it all the time, but I guess since it's the only metric we really have to go off, we don't have a choice.
But since we consider it, and you acknowledge that it's not an exact science,
right? Yeah.
Would you consider it as
even within that, lakes and rivers dry up, or complete continent shifts, or earthquakes, volcanoes, eruptions that happened that altered the course of something that changes where those dates could have came from.
So do you think that it's possible, if there was say a large flood ever recorded, that would leave identifying marks in the land?
Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. So Grand Canyon would be a perfect example.
So in essence, then you kind of do believe in carbon dating because you see how the science does work.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. But all right, back to these tablets, man. So they find these tablets in ancient Iraq. What's on these tablets that you know?
It's just got a lot of different stories, cryptic stories. It's been translated. We're not speaking the same language as the ancients did. So right. It's all open to interpretation and very subjective. But the writings tell stories of otherworldly beings altering human DNA, bringing technology. They speak of gods, plural. Ancient Egyptians were polytheistic. Civilizations in the Middle East were polytheistic, not monotheistic, meaning that they only worship one god. Mythology says that the Anunnaki were from a planet called Nibiru. Nibiru is supposed to be our 9th planet. And there's actually evidence from NASA that there's a possibility that we have a planet beyond Pluto.
The thing about that, though, to me, they don't even know, sometimes Pluto's a planet, sometimes it's, let's say it again. Nibiru. Talk about Nibiru, and it's all right, well, if that was beyond Pluto, how did life survive? because it's so far away from our sun that nothing supports life. Like, I mean, you look at anything after Mars is a gas planet. You know what I'm saying? Jupiter's a gas planet, Saturn's a gas planet. It only gets so farther back. Like Pluto's probably a gas planet that's frozen.
I agree, but you're looking at it through the lens of our reality.
Absolutely, you're right.
Of our reality. And if you look at things through our construct, you're going to be very limited. If there is another species of intelligent life out there, there are no rules that say they have to be governed by the same physics that we are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're right.
Let's talk about the dimensions, for example. So on a one-dimensional, hypothetically speaking, a one-dimensional organism is only going to be able to go forward and backward. There's no depth. It can't go up. It doesn't even understand up. You can't fathom what you don't even know in your realm. So a two-dimensional organism, hypothetically, will be able to go forward, backward, up, and down. So that's like a piece of paper. When you draw something, that's 2 dimensions. We live in a 3-dimensional world where you can go up, down, and we have depth. So that gives us another dimension. We don't know the dimensions stop at 3. What if the 4th dimension includes time? What if an interdimensional being is able to move through time the way we move across space?
And they talk about, like, even in the Bible, it talks about God is outside of time and space. So that could even be 5th dimension type, 6th dimension type of beings that interact with us, because we don't know how to get to that 4th, 5th, 6th dimension. Exactly. Versus them coming to our dimension, because we can go to, I don't say we can go to a 2-dimensional world, but we understand a 2-dimensional world and how it operates. But we can't go past a 3-dimensional world because we don't understand that technology.
Exactly. Yet. And a person, let's say hypothetically, if you were, it's not real, but if a person was to live in a 2-dimensional world, they wouldn't even be able to realize or comprehend what a 3-dimensional world would be like. Comprehension that they're here.
All right. So you got these Anunnakis that are from, we'll just say, the 9th planet, way out there. They come here, they're bringing us information, technology, and life. Now, does that mean that we already think, okay, we can't be alone in the universe? So their envision of what we should be on Earth, if they interacted with us, could be different from a different species, because you always hear about, like, the lizard people. Now, I don't know if that's true or that's not true. I think that's kind of far-fetched to be a race of lizards. But again, it could definitely possibly happen. And they have more destructive ideas for our world because they want our resources here. So it's like, do you think the Anunnaki is here to bring, like, peace, life, love, all of those type of things? And then you have other entities that are also here trying to influence the human race through war and poverty and self-destruction.
Wow, that's a good one. I would have to say, I really have no idea. I can't even pretend to know what the motives of another species is.
Right.
I would just say that, there's evidence that someone or some group has definitely taken a vested interest in the direction of human evolution. So I don't know if it's the Anunnaki wanting to have better for us, or if it's human psyche that's just destructive. I don't know. That's a good question for
you. Humans by themselves are kind of self-destructive. Yeah. Like, we are a self-destructive species. We are a repetitive species that we like to repeat our history.
Yes, we are creatures of habit.
Yes, exactly. We are creatures of habit. And unfortunately, some of those habits are self-destructing habits.
But back to the Sumerian tablets, I just find it really, really fascinating. Just some of the stories that were, supposedly on these tablets. So supposedly that this planet Nibiru only enters our solar system every 3,600 years, which is odd. And supposedly that when it does enter our atmosphere, the gravitational pull changes things. And the last time that it entered our atmosphere, there's stories of a great flood.
This could probably all be happening at once. Like, our Earth spins on an axis. Well, our core is slowing down. And if this Nibiru comes into our atmosphere, we could topple over. And if we stop spinning and topple over, what's going to happen? All that water's still moving. Air and atmosphere stuff is still moving when it stops and tops over, which would create what? Floods over the continents,
Yep.
which could have what happened to Antarctica. You know, they're finding life on Antarctica frozen in the thing. If it was switched and now the poles are switched, those Antarctica and Greenland and those kind of areas, the North Pole areas, would have been on the equator. Yeah. And then now you're looking at possibly, you know, Seattle, California being the new Antarctic, like frozen tundras. I mean, that could work out for Ohio. We could be the next Florida. But I'm just saying, like, when you talk about a mass flood and Nibiru comes into our atmosphere and all of a sudden our core's slowing down and we topple over and stop spinning and then restart and reset. It could be like the Great Reset.
It is. And that it's really ironic that the story, you know, of the Great Flood in the Bible coincides with this. And supposedly that this Nibiru planet is supposed to be called, you know, in mythological stories, they call it the Destroyer, because when it comes, it brings destruction.
And then you talk about, when you were just talking about basically interbreeding of the Anunnaki coming down here and interbreeding, they could have created that race of giants. In the Bible, when they talk about the flood, wiped out that race of giants. Well, if Nibiru's coming into the atmosphere, we topple over for the flood, they're going to be out here on Earth probably doing that same thing. Again, history repeating itself. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like that's definitely a possibility.
Definitely is a possibility. And another thing that I found was really, really crazy was, so the Nibiru was the planet that the Anunnaki were from, and they brought slaves with them called the Ajiji. The Ajiji were the ones who did the work for the Anunnaki. This is when supposedly that humans were cavemen. We're still cavemen at this point. The Ajiji got tired of being slaves and rebelled against the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were way too powerful, pretty much wiped out the Ajiji. So that's when the Anunnaki started to create the interbreeding with the Anunnaki and the cavemen to create the first humans. And in the tablets, these Sumerian tablets, they called these first humans the Adamu. Isn't that funny? The first man, Adam, and they called him, the first humans were Adamu.
It's pretty coincidental.
It is.
Or coincidence / conspiracy for sure. Yeah, I didn't know that.
The Anunnaki, you know, that story, the mythological story, is very fascinating. But there's lots and lots of different stories throughout history of otherworldly beings interacting with humans and changing the course of history.
Right. Yeah, they have. I mean, the Book of Enoch, which was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, also talks about the way that the Earth was created and how men, you know, they had the Watchers, which could have been the Anunnaki. I mean, you're talking about similar stories in different scripts found in different parts of the world, because I believe the Dead Sea Scrolls was found in a cave in Egypt. But you're talking about two different parts of like a country with similar script writings talking about similar things. I mean, it's hard not to think like, oh yeah, these are definitely connected pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's when two different civilizations from different times, different geographical locations have similar stories, there's gotta be some truth to that. If there's smoke, there's fire.
Right. And that fire's been burning, and you got to look at like what we're going through now with all, like you said, the technology. They can't hide forever with the cell phones and able to see them. But even just as far back as 1989, they had, his name was, quote unquote, Dennis, come out. His name Bob Lazar. I think everyone pretty much knows the Bob Lazar story. He's a guy, he worked at Los Alamos and reverse engineered at S4, Area 51, the propulsion area of these spacecrafts. And he says, there's 9. They recovered them from archaeological digs, crash sites, or just hijacked them. But they had 9 spacecrafts there at Area 51, where he worked on his section. And he said he probably would have been able to get further into the technology, but he was only limited to the area that he worked on. So they keep them in separate areas. So like if you work on propulsion like he did, that's all you were allowed to be briefed on or learned about. and you didn't know how it interacted with like the navigation system. You know, they had a whole different section of scientists that were working on the navigational systems. So a lot of the things that he talks about, like he knows about propulsion, but he doesn't really know about anything else spacecrafts dealt with other than the fact that they were little. Like he was saying, they were built for kid size, toddler size beings.
And to put in context your point that Area 51 is actually broken up into several different sub areas.
Right.
And the area that Bob Lazar was working at was adjacent to Area 51 in the area S4. So that's how they were able to actually keep different departments away from each other and limit the knowledge that they had.
Yeah, he said he came out on record for insurance for his life because they got fired from there for, I guess, interpersonal reasons in his family, and he didn't know why. So he wanted to come forward because he didn't want to be, you know, how the government did, silence you.
Yeah, come up
missing somewhere. And advanced civilization technology from the society as a whole, and he thinks that's wrong. And the government's counter to that is, hey, this dude's lying because he doesn't have any good credentials. We took away, it's like a distraction. Hey, look over here. Don't worry about what he's saying on this part. We want you to worry about he didn't go to MIT, he didn't go to Caltech when he did. And
we've seen this playbook over and over again. It's like discredit the witness as much as possible so that we just get people to forget about it and not pay him any attention. I believe the Bob Lazar story simply for our government is so vicious. They treat us like we're simple children. We're not strong enough to understand the truth or accept what's really going on without mass panic. And it's like, you guys have done more to us than anything else. Like, you're not saving us from anything. You've done more destructive things to your own people than anything that the aliens could possibly do. In that situation, I definitely believe that the Bob Lazar story is true. He's been telling the same story for 30 years. And it didn't change. Nobody really cares. He doesn't have anything to gain from this. If anything, you have more to lose from even speaking out.
Yeah,
you know,
life.
Your life.
Right.
They will not think twice about killing anybody.
Speaking of that, I mean, look at the two guys who created the water engine. You know, the one guy in, like, I think it was 96, 98. He had that meeting with the oil companies and came out, said he poisoned and died. And then all of a sudden you got a guy driving three hours, like, you know, some crazy 500 miles to Buffalo to shoot up a Walmart, who's the security guard. It
was a Tops supermarket. Only reason I know is because I'm from Lockport, New York, and that happened really close to where I'm from.
But he was a security guard at that supermarket, and he also created an engine just like the dude in 96 did. And it's like, you know that they'll come out and just whack you. Like, they don't care.
Whack you.
Because it's all about the money, man.
The money. I mean, and this is a little bit off topic, but you could just look at the Jeffrey Epstein situation. There's no way he committed suicide in jail. Like, they whacked him. He knew too much. Yeah. He was too much of a liability. And when you become that much of a liability, your life is pretty much over. They're gonna kill you.
Which makes me think, like, because they say Bob got out some element 115 from one of his places. Maybe he still has it. During the documentary that I watched, they raided him. The FBI raided him. You know, they said it was some phony thing. They were looking for receipts from a customer 2 years prior, but it's like, you know, that can be handled with a phone call. You got FBI, CIA, DEA, like all kinds of different agencies at his home and his laboratory. It's like they probably still think he has 115. And the way that you create 115, it's miniature disc stacked on top of each other, compressed down into a cylinder, and then laser cut off into a cone. And it has to be done that way. Like, you can't skip any steps for it to work properly in these machines. So I'm sure that this material that they have to get, And in the process they have to get through to get it to the condition of element 115, which they even lied about that. When they created the cylinder to get it sent off to be cut, they changed the name from element 115 to LA 1000 and said it was for armored vehicles.
Can you talk about the significance of element 115 for the people that don't understand what you're speaking about and how it's so important?
It's basically the fuel of the crafts. So like they stick it into a reactor that, a reactor being something that reacts to the element 115 that creates a gravity distortion. And it's these three poles create a distortion in space and time to move your craft left or right. So they need this. Basically, it's the fuel, and it's an alternate fuel than what we are used to, accustomed to, is gasoline or kerosene or whatever, jet fuel, whatever our rockets are using. So it's not a propulsion based combustion where you shoot something out the back and your car goes forward, or you shoot flames out the back and your car goes forward. This is actually something in front of you that's pulling you, or your vehicle craft is falling into an area that is moving space, time, and gravity in front of you. And this is the fuel for that. So they need it to probably fuel these crafts that they're creating, reverse engineering. They say he's got a piece of that. And I think that that's probably one of the reasons that he's being kept alive. They want to find this piece. Now, is that the only reason? Probably not. Probably government doesn't really care about alien spacecrafts because they know a bunch of civilians aren't out there making spacecrafts that can get a hold of this material to do that. Whereas the water engine guys, you can convert your cars over to that today.
Yeah.
If you had that technology, that drives down the price of gasoline because no one's going to need gasoline.
And that brings down the whole conglomerate.
Yep. Another thing that I think credits Bob Lazar, though, is like the things that he come out and said, like years later, they're little "I told you so" moments. We talked about element 115. It wasn't even on the periodic table. It is now. I think 10 years, 10, 15 years after he had spoke about it in 1989, it comes to fruition. Like, yeah, this thing does exist. And then you talk about like the bone scan. So for him to check in, it wasn't an ID card that he checked into S4. He had like these bone scanners that you put your hands on that measure the bones in your fingers. And he's like, I haven't seen one since then. And they found proof that these things exist, that you put your hand on there, a light comes on and they scan the bones in your fingers. Because every bone, I guess, is like my bone to your bones or anyone's bones is different. Every length is different. And that's how they gained access to their facilities, is these bone scanners. And they have proof that these existed as well. So it's like, how does he know all of this stuff? Is he guessing, or does he know somebody that works there? So it's like, it's hard to not believe the things that he says are true. So that tells you like, okay, they have 9 alien craft. They probably have more by now.
Absolutely.
Or they've reverse engineered them and they've got their own crafts that they're working on.
So what do you think about the fact that, we have proof that over the last 100 years, human civilization has evolved faster than at any point in time in history? Do you think it's being accelerated with help, or do you think we're just getting smarter? Because if you look around, let's be honest, people are dumber than ever. Yeah. People are dumber than ever, but yet technology is accelerating at a pace faster than we've ever seen before. How can you explain that?
Yeah, I think that they definitely are intervening with our technology. It just makes you wonder, like, which people, because they're obviously not coming out here teaching us stuff. So how do they know who to teach? And I'll give you an example. World War II, Dr. von Braun, he credits all his rocket technology from otherworldly beings. So if you have Dr. von Braun, who was a rocket engineer for the Germans, and he was accused of his war crimes, and then he became NASA's director of rocket engineering, basically helped put the rockets in space. And he credits all of that knowledge to otherworldly beings. Okay, how did they choose him? How did they go, this is the dude that we want to do that with? You know what I'm saying? Like, was he already in a position? Or was he like an interbreeded species that they already knew this dude's got a predetermined destination? We need to teach him how this stuff works so that we can move civilization to another level.
What if, this is a real deep dive down the rabbit hole. But what if, we are the ones who decide if we're chosen or not? What if the system has been built to distract us from enlightenment? We spend so much focus on social media, pop culture, sports. We don't really pay attention to anything that really matters. So if there was an intelligent being trying to communicate with 90% of the population, I just think we're too ignorant to even respond or even receive the message. What if that's by design? What if they're trying to help people like us, but we're just so distracted that we just can't perceive anything?
What would have distracted us back when World War II was on? Because they didn't have social media. But what would have been our main? Like I can tell you right now, our main distraction right now is our cell phones or our personal devices, whatever. Like we are definitely distracted as a species. Like you said, we're dumber as a species because all we do is face fuck our phones. That is all we do. I mean, 90% of the population probably is on TikTok or Twitter or Facebook, Instagram. I mean, something. Anything you want to learn or want to know, YouTube is another big one. I don't know how to work on cars. I go to YouTube every time.
Oh, yeah. YouTube University.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, where would that distraction come from back in that time to say, okay, someone like a Dr. Von Braun is a candidate for, to teach him more? Like in the Bob Lazar case, he wasn't selected. He was making jet engines in his garage and just messing around. And it caught the attention of people like, hey, this dude might know something that we could. I mean, he did go to MIT. He's a smart individual, but like he wasn't selected.
He put a rocket in a Honda. So,
yeah.
I mean, he was definitely advertising his service.
Right, exactly. But I get what you're saying. Like, we're distracted beings. They may be trying to reach out to some of us, and we're just in our own level.
As far as, World War II, I can't speak on that. I wasn't alive, right. But just judging from how easily it is to distract humans today, I don't believe that it was that much harder during World War II. When people you watch the news and they have a playbook that is so basic that just literally scare the shit out of you, tell you the world's ending, the country from wherever is gonna come take us over. It literally never changes. They just change the characters and it just keeps recycling. So there's plenty of opportunities to be distracted at any point in time in history because people are gonna believe whatever you tell them. And if you're good at it and you make it convincing, the lie can go on for decades, right. Centuries.
But like you said, it's the same story, just different characters, and they just replay it for different generations.
Exactly.
So like what we're seeing right now is what they did with the boomers. And how old are the boomers? They're, in their 60s and 70s.
A little bit older than that, bud. We're old now.
Yeah, I know. What do you think about like life here on Earth? And then like our Elon Musk is a big one on trying to create life somewhere else. Do you think it's worth trying to sustain life here? Or do you think that the masses at B know something and we're trying to get off this rock before that happens? Like you said, that Nibiru is coming in, probably within the next, 500 to 1,000 years, depending on how you calculate it. And we know a catastrophic event is going to happen. So we're trying to get off of here.
I mean, there's definitely a push for these billionaires to be the first one to, whether it's create recreational spot for other rich people just to have a hotel up in space or to occupy Mars or whatever they're trying to do. There's definitely a push for it. I don't think that Earth is going to get annihilated and they're trying to find a way out, because if something was to destroy the Earth, I don't believe Mars is going to make it either. I think we have a bigger problem. If there's going to be some asteroid or something, that destroy the Earth, then it's going to have fallout everywhere. It's not like they're going to go to the moon and not get hit by whatever's going to destroy us. If the Earth floods again and, it wipes out most of humanity, it's still civilization at that point in time, I would hope, has the technology to build something better than Noah's Ark and survive it, you know? So I'm always going to root for humans. I think we're a creative species, and I'm just not going to bet against us.
Right. You look at a lot of underground cities, and they talk about today. Like I've seen videos that they say there are underground cities here in the United States that they've probably been building into in Nevada, in Utah, in Colorado. That there's these underground cities that could be safe havens for those one percenters.
I believe that's true, 100%. They definitely have bunkers that are, you can see them. They have them for sale. They're advertising them. These old World War II nuclear bunkers that have been repurposed into whatever the safety for the 1%. If the shit hits the fan, that's definitely big business. These people are paranoid as fuck. There's always going to be some crisis. There's going to be another. China's coming to take us over. Russia's going to do this. Like, they're never going to stop, and they're always going to pander and sell fear.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, as they found underground cities in other countries, and now they're putting them in here, like maybe that is what they tried to do to get away from some kind of invasion or the flood or something. Like they were trying to prolong their lives here on this planet for whatever reason that could be coming down the pipe. So you think it's more, we should be investing more time in creating this planet and prepping our planet versus exploring and trying to colonize another planet.
Yeah, because I mean, even if you go to space, where are you going to get water?
I understand.
You need water. We're going to come back to Earth just to refuel water, right? And then come, like, let's be real here. Mars, let's say they do have underground lakes. Is the water potable? What do they need to do to make that for humans to be able to consume that? Like, there's a lot more that goes into this, that it's not just going to be as easy as leaving this country or leaving the world or the planet. Have you heard anything about the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah?
Yeah, that's a place that, from my understanding, there is a lot of paranormal activity that goes on there, dimensional activity that goes on there, wormhole or portal activity that goes on there. And there's a lot of unexplained coincidences, conspiracies that happen there. And a lot, for some reason, it's just a ranch, but classified material that, we're not allowed to be privy to. So there's something definitely going on there that is worth investigating. And I don't think they should hide that from the public either. Just like Area 51, I think it should all be, not everything can be public, but paranormal stuff, like, because you don't want to, advertise all your war plans. If Area 51 is a place where they develop, nuclear stuff for war testing or whatever, like, yeah, you don't want to get that out to the public. It's going to get out to your enemies. And, as much as everyone wants to live in a utopia, we have enemies. United States has enemies. China has enemies. Brazil has enemies. There's someone who don't like somebody somewhere, everywhere on this planet. So I don't want to say all information should be deemed worthy to everybody. But when it comes to like what Skinwalker and release to the public, like we should be able to get that information in some kind of website or data text or something. Like, I do think that should be, and they couldn't find it, so they think it came through a wormhole. Now, again, is that just to a different dimension, or is that to a link to the past? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out, but at the same time, like, they always talk about when you make a time machine, you can't go where there's no roads. So if you go into the past, they didn't have time machines there, so that you can only go from the invention of the time machine moving forward, is their theory on that. So I don't really know about that part, but I just know that they saw an endangered wolf on that ranch. And then you're going to go into a lot more other stuff that they know about this ranch.
Man, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on at this ranch. There's been multiple situations where cattle have been mutilated, where something is taking the blood of the cattle and the eyeballs without making a mess anywhere, not a drop of blood anywhere, but yet the cows die, their blood is drained, and their eyes are taken, the ones that's facing the sun facing sky. It's really, really strange because there's no way that we know of that you can take the bodily fluids of an animal without making a mess.
Right.
That alone is a mystery. And there's plenty more mysteries. I guess in 2013, there was a movie about Skinwalker Ranch. I haven't seen it. I definitely want to check it out. But there's multiple phenomenons that have been caught on camera there. Netflix released a series on Skinwalker Ranch, The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. And it's about the new owner that purchased Skinwalker Ranch from the previous owner, Robert Bigelow. Now, Robert Bigelow, he's big into UFOs and space exploration. When he purchased this property, purchased the ranch in 1996, and he knew that there was multiple phenomenons going on at this ranch. They decided to conduct investigations by placing cattle in caged pens. They built watchtowers and put surveillance around to see what happened with these cattle, how they would react to some of the phenomenons in the area. And none of the conclusions that they came to have ever been released. Everything's confidential. There's rumors that he worked with the government, and none of the investigations have ever been released. It's all confidential. Supposedly, when he sold the ranch to Brandon Fugel in 2016, he warned the new owner that there were phenomenons on this property that were not able to be explained. There were things that he could not and will not understand, and he warned him about what he was getting into. So
do you think he shared any information with him, like with that new owner? So you have the guy who's selling it to the new guy. Do you think he shared any of that classified information with him, or he was privy to that classified information because he's now the owner of the land?
I think that the new owner definitely knows more than what he was saying. So this Netflix series, it doesn't really give too much light on the transaction between the previous owner and the current owner, but they do give a couple shots with the new owner, but it's dramatized for TV. So I don't know how much is just played up for the show, but there's definitely something going on at this place. It's wild. It is wild. I've seen multiple different, reenactments or videos of people's interactions with UFOs or sightings. This is the first thing I've ever seen on Netflix that actually gives closed experiments, like closed situations where they're able to define the parameters and literally see. They have a situation where they were able to pick up multiple different RF frequencies around this property, anomalies that just don't happen. This is places in the middle of the desert. There's no microwaves. There's no Wi-Fi antennas right there. There's no reason for them to be picking up these frequencies where they're at. So what they did is put these RF monitors in coffee cans to kind of detect more precisely the direction that these frequencies are being picked up at. So they went to 3 different areas on the property, and they were able to discover that there's a source generating these frequencies that's not in the ground. It's above the ground. By their estimation, they said that this is 5,000 feet above ground. So they're 5,000 feet above sea level, and it's 5,000 feet above them. So 10,000 feet above sea level is where they are triangulating the source of these frequencies.
And the frequency, you can't see it.
You cannot see the
See
frequencies.
what it is, right?
Absolutely not.
So you can't look up and go, okay, the frequencies are coming from this source. There's nothing above it.
There's nothing there. And a mile high, you would be able to see that with your naked eye. Right. It's not like it's so far up that you'd need a telescope. This should be in plain sight. So that led them to do a couple experiments. One of the experiments they did was they used a weather balloon and they attached multiple instruments to take readings of the RF frequencies, and they let this balloon off, and it took off, and it stopped receiving or sending the data once it reached that 5,000 feet, or 5,000 feet above them, 10,000 feet above sea level. Once it reached that zone, the weather balloon quit sending data. They don't know if it blacked out. They don't know what happened, what type of malfunction it is, but the weather balloon has been known to fly much higher than what they needed it to. So that was just really, really weird that they're not able to do that. And it's almost like some of the stories that you hear about the Bermuda Triangle and stuff like that, where the electronics of these planes and stuff start going haywire. This is the exact same thing that they're seeing here. They're on land and they're able to investigate it.
So it could be like a Bermuda Triangle of the desert, kind of.
Could
Because,
be.
like, you know, the Bermuda Triangle could also be considered a wormhole,
Exactly,
or some kind of passageway between 2 points.
One of the real crazy things that I've seen on this show for Netflix, it's the Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, is they were kept detecting these anomalies with these RF frequencies. They'd just be random spikes, but a couple of them were unique in the fact that they were getting hits on every frequency, every RF frequency, from small to large, at the same time. Now, this is not something that humans are able to do. This is definitely something else. So it can't just be brushed off as, oh, it's internet waves, or it's a microwave from, no. Nothing we have, nothing that we've created is able to do that.
I want to go back to those videos. You said they had surveillance videos of experiments of cattle put in cages. Do they have the results of that? Like, were you able to see what happened to these cows, or anything that may have?
So the findings from the previous owner, Robert Bigelow, all of them are either confidential or hidden in a safe somewhere. They're not releasing any of that. None of that information.
So those videos aren't released. They just say, we do have these videos of these cows, but they don't show you.
All they have is there's evidence of cattle mutilation.
Right.
There's no information on it, on what they possibly think happened or anything like that. But they do. The only thing that I can shed light to on that situation is where they had one situation where the new owner tried to do something similar as the previous owner. He was able to bring in cattle from a local rancher, I assume. And in one of the situations, you know, the cattle, they were really scared, huddling all together, and it was almost like they were seeing something that no one else, none of the team and the investigators were able to see. It was just a strange incident. I don't know, you know, what it was doing, the cattle mutilations. And like I said, they don't really give you any information about that. But as far as the new owner, there's another situation where a cattle just died, just flat out died out of nowhere. And it's weird because they caught that on camera. That was one of the ones they did catch on camera. And
so they've got video of this cow just kicking over.
Just kicking over. Nowhere. It's sick. You know, in the video, you can tell it's laying down. In the video, the cow tries to get up and it doesn't make it, and it falls back down. But what's strangely ironic about that video is in the same shot, they have evidence of a UFO appearing above the cow in the sky. And at the same moment that that UFO appears is the same moment that the cow tries to get up. Like, it was scared and on its deathbed trying to run away from what's coming. And the cow just dies. And the UFO moves and disappears. It's really, really strange. You got to check this series out because it's, like I said.
Yeah, we'll probably have to do a follow-up.
It's wild.
Like a Skinwalker Ranch episode completely. I'm going to check that out when I get back. But
yeah, because it's the closest form of communication I've ever seen you know, on even on TV or on a video between humans poking the bear and there's a response. So they actually shot rockets off after they lost their weather balloon. So they were shooting rockets off.
Hold on. So they lost the balloon. They didn't even recover
The balloon's never been recovered.
Oh wow, that's
so
crazy.
they don't even know what
So
happened.
after it hit that 5,000
feet
mark, it just disappeared. Basically,
they lost track of it. They couldn't. It quit sending signal. They never got it.
Oh wow. Yeah, I didn't even know that. I just thought they got the balloon, but they didn't receive any more data after that, which was weird. But no, they lost that balloon is just gone.
Yeah, that balloon was gone. And then they definitely they tried to do another investigation with rockets instead of a balloon. They wanted to get to their mark faster. They didn't want the wind to take it. They wanted more precise scenario. So when they did these rockets, is ironic because this is one of the ones where they shoot a rocket off and then an orb appears in the sky. They catch all this on camera and this happens again. So they shot off 2 different rockets and literally got 2 different responses. Now they have a command center. They're able to monitor air traffic in the area. And there's no planes going around when this is going off. So you can't just write it off as there's a plane coming by. No, this is, they have it on video. There's no planes, according to the air traffic controller, but yet something's in the sky. There's also lots of different scenarios or lots of different situations where just the normal phenomena, and not normal because no phenomenon is normal, but situations where, you know, batteries die in some of their investigation equipment. I know like they tried to get a drone to do infrared topography and they couldn't get the drone to synchronize with the controller because it just would not sync. They couldn't get batteries to stay charged. There's another situation where the cow that died, one of the guys is taking pictures of the scene so that they have evidence. During him taking pictures, his phone goes haywire, absolutely haywire. It looks like something from in a movie where it's just glitching, numbers are going, all sorts of stuff. And they show the phone on camera. You can see it, and it's doing this own thing.
This is so it's Skinwalker Ranch. So is it an operational ranch? Like what do they ranch there? Is it a place where they did cattle or they have, I mean, is there people who live there now? Like you say, someone owns it, but does he stay on the property? Do they have ranch hands who live on this property?
No.
So it's completely vacant.
No, it's not vacant, but the owner does not live there. He's a billionaire.
Oh, yeah.
he's not living there. He bought this. From what I understand, he seems like he bought this because he knows there's some crazy stuff going on here, and he wants to figure it out. But there's ranch hands there. There's, you know, it's 500 acres, I believe. So, you know, there's people that work there that tend to the property. I believe in the 1900s, it was a working cattle ranch, but, you know, people don't really want to stay there. It has
all the phenomena.
Yeah. Legend has it that there's, you know, skinwalkers. That's what the Navajo would call them. And I'm not really sure what that translates to, what a skinwalker is, but apparently there's a ridge behind this ranch and they call it Skinwalker Ridge. And there's been multiple sightings over, you know, 100 years or so of these creatures walking along this ridge and then just disappearing, which is really, really weird because, you know, the team was investigating the ridge and they took cameras up and set them up everywhere. They did infrared. They found infrared showing beams of light that are not seen by the naked human eye that are beaming down onto this ranch. Not all the time. Sometimes it would happen. Sometimes they never know when it was, but they had the cameras in a fixed position to be able to record all the time. And this is one of the things that they caught. This is really wild. Multiple different situations with multiple different phenomenons that can't be explained. There's something to this ranch.
I'm surprised there hasn't been a big, I guess, commotion for civilians to go there like they do Area 51. They camp out outside Area 51. They hang out there. I'm really surprised that this isn't destination for that as well, especially since it is connected to so many different phenomenons. It could be spiritual, it could be, alien stuff there too. It could be a whole bunch of different stuff that could possibly be happening. And I'm surprised that people are not flocking to this ranch, get their own frequency readings or something. There's so many paranormal people out there, card readers, whatever, and you don't hear about any of this. You don't see it on any channels of social media or anything that people are going out there checking this out. Obviously, you're not out on the ranch, but at the same time, like, you could probably be around the perimeter of the ranch, and try to check, and maybe even that ridge, if that ridge isn't on the property line, or it could be sanctioned land also, because you said the Indians, the Navajo, were in the area, so maybe it's a reservation type area also, so where normal people aren't allowed to be at.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not really sure. I mean, I've never even heard. I think I have heard of the movie. Never watched it. Never paid attention. I was just scrolling on Netflix one day and seeing this one. I started watching it. I'm like, this is wild. I just kept watching the whole thing. So, I mean, I think that Area 51 seems like it's just the name brand. Like, that's what,
right.
By default, you think aliens, it's Area 51. They did a great job for marketing for that. But in reality, is that really the spot with the highest level of paranormal or extraterrestrial activity? We don't know that. We don't know that. There's very few people that are able to track this stuff. So, I mean, you don't know anything, because it's all subjective.
Right. All right. And with that, man, I think we're going to come to a close on Area 51, Bob Lazar, Anunnaki, Skinwalker Ranch. The Bob Lazar documentary was on Netflix. It is taken down now. I would check it out. You can find it on YouTube. I would definitely check that out. And I'm going to check out the Skinwalker Ranch, and then we can link up in a future episode, if that's cool with you, Kevin.
Yeah, sounds good.
Dig into this Skinwalker Ranch deeper a little bit. So, hey, with that, man, you'll find you're lucky where hard work meets opportunity. Stay blessed.